That's right, Clutch. You bring it down. Before we go to our guest, I want to thank one of my great sponsors, AlexJonesRingtones.net. Jonesing for Alex Jones. Unhappy that the Bermy is in for, I think, 3 straight days, not getting your Jones fix. Well, there's an easy way to do it. Go to AlexJonesRingtones.net. That's AlexJonesRingtones.net. You can get the Obama sheep 1 and 2. 9/11 was an inside job. The swine flu virus, the WHO. They're very cheap. They're very affordable. It's another great way, other than getting the shirts, handing out the videos, to get the message out about the info war. Someone here's a little blurb. Hey, we got free podcasts over at Infowars.com. Oh, there's this other hat over at the InfoWarrior.com. He's got a whole playlist. He does a free podcast, too. You check him out on YouTube. It's a great icebreaker. AlexJonesRingtones.net. All right, I want to thank my next guest. Contacted me over on the MySpace. For those that don't believe that I actually do maintain my own MySpace and Facebook, I do. It's tireless. I'm getting up to now like 200-300 messages between the two in a day, and it is getting very hard for me to go through the whole thing. But he caught me earlier in the week, and he was telling me how loose change had been banned in his school. His name is John Gualtieri. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. And he was attending West Ridge Academy in Salt Lake City, Utah. Why don't you just start from, were you awake beforehand? Did somebody pass loose change onto you? Where was your awakening? And then how this all came to be, John. And thanks for coming in.
Be on
you
the
with
show.
us, John? Hey, no problem.
Well, when I was attending West Ridge Academy, it was a religious background school, so we had a Bible studies class there.
Mm-hmm.
And my teacher, Mr. Bell, who was teaching at the time, he would show us movies in class. And, these movies would range from anything, it could be anything. And one day he decided to bring loose change. And he showed us
around what time period is this? Can you give me like a year? I mean, is this 05, 06, 07, 08? How long ago was this?
This was 07.
07, okay. Keep going.
And so he brought in the movie, and he showed it to us during class. But before this, he'd also showed us some other stuff. He had shown us Skull and Bones, just the, intro to conspiracy kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it got the class really interested, and we were all, asking him if he had any other movies or anything. And he said, yeah, well, I got this movie Loose Change. I'm going to bring it in for you guys. And he ended up bringing it in for us, and pretty much everyone was shocked by the movie. Personally, I was. That was really the first time that I was woken up and realized kind of what was going on. Like, I probably watched the film like 5 times since then. I absolutely love it. But it was in that classroom that I really found it out.
Now, this seems like a teacher that was really reaching out to his students if he was bringing in this type of material. And honestly, if you were going to some kind of a, Christian academy, this guy seems like a true Christian, whereas a lot of Christians will proselytize for the Bush Boys and Newt Gingrich and all these other false prophets that act like they're Christians but then go to the Bohemian Grove in the summer. Obviously, your teacher was aware of a lot of their hypocrisy and dishonesty. So he's shown other things in class before, but this loose change thing seems to set off an alarm bell, or what happens? What happens after the classroom actually watches this, and now this is what's buzzing around the hallways?
Well, I remember for me, as soon as it was over, pretty much everyone got up from their desks. We just started really talking about it. It spread like a tidal wave through campus. Like, everyone was talking about it. And it was really one of those things. It was kind of a protected environment. This school, it was LDS, and I'm personally not LDS, which is Mormon. And a lot of the Mormons do have very conservative views. They really don't, question their government at all, which was odd for this guy because he was Mormon, and he did show us this film. But teachers started hearing about it. I personally started talking to teachers about it. I was talking to my friends about it, just everyone, and pretty much trying to get the word out to everybody. But it definitely got around fast to even those who didn't watch it.
And with those who didn't watch it, did they immediately, I don't know if you were listening to the show earlier, but this kid who was in his middle school, he asked a thumb scan for his lunch, and, you know, he complained about it to the lunch lady, and she said, oh, you're not one of those paranoids, are you? Oh, you're not one of those kooks, are you? People who hadn't watched it, did they take that view and that attitude to those that were promoting it and trying to get people to at least look at the information?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, they were definitely skeptical of it. Just because it was a small class, you know, it was only about 11 people. The school had about 150 to 200 kids, and you know, pretty much anybody who hadn't seen it was interested, or they really didn't care, or they, you know, thought that you know, it was just a stupid movie. And and then should I start going into how it actually got banned?
Yeah, I want to get into that in a second, but when you say that you were in a class of 11 kids, now, is this an all-day class? Is this somebody you're going to periods in? I mean, what, you said it was in 2007, so what, you were a junior or a senior?
I was actually a senior.
You were a senior. Okay, so is this the structure where you have 8 periods a day, and this was just like one of those periods, and he was showing it to multiple classrooms?
It was actually 4 periods a day that changed. 4 periods one day, 4 periods the next, different 4 periods the next day.
Okay, so in other words, he was showing this more than just your class. He probably spent a day showing this to several classes. Yeah,
he probably showed it to at least 2 or 3 classes.
Okay.
But still, at the same time, that doesn't cover the whole of campus. There was still a lot of people who hadn't seen it because most of the kids, some of the kids there were Mormons, so they weren't required to take the Bible studies class because that was the Christian class for those who weren't Mormon.
Oh, I gotcha. Well, it is interesting, the whole Mormon thing. A lot of people like to bash on Mormons, and personally, I don't like to go after organized religion as a whole. But, you know, one of the Mormons that I think is a true hero in this 9/11 truth movement is, of course, Dr. Stephen Jones, who makes an appearance in Loose Change Final Cut.
Yes, I was actually looking at that, and BYU had actually had a hearing case on him, and I actually tried to contact BYU about that because it was like an attack on freedom of speech. I don't know if you've looked into that, but BYU had a problem with him talking about that.
Oh, yeah, they actually they forced him into early retirement. I've had several dinners with Dr. Jones, interviewed him on several occasions, had him on several radio programs. I mean, the reason they really attacked him, not only because he was very open and honest about what he thought, he had actually done the experimentation that was disproving that the molten metal that was falling from the towers was aluminum and a mixture of furniture and office supplies, as the debunkers would have us believe. He was disproving the fireball theories all the way down. He was showing that the molten metal could only be caused in an environment of 2,700 degrees and higher. And he came up with the thermite hypothesis, which to this day is probably the best hypothesis out there. And this newest paper that just came out 3 or 4 months ago shows unexploded nanothermite particles within the dust at the World Trade Center. So he is an anti-establishment individual that I think is taking not only his religion to heart, but his country to heart, showing that dissent is the biggest form of patriotism. Big ups to Stephen Jones. So let's start getting into how this Mr. Bell gets reprimanded and ultimately fired for this film.
Well, basically, this happened after not too long after they banned the movie. And I just want to go into. I had actually talked to my buddy today because he was at the institution longer than I was. Mm-hmm. He said that most of the teachers there were, in fact, had some type of military background, mm-hmm. had served. In fact, the headmaster of the school, his name's Paul Keene. I contacted him today just to make sure that I had right what he did. He is a military police officer, and he's getting deployed this Monday. But he was the one who had heard. He had heard about it from other students that would come up to him and talk to him about it, and this caused a lot of controversy. I just remember. I actually had a copy, and I tried to bring it into another room with the teacher, and he said that we couldn't be playing that anymore. That it wasn't allowed in the school, and that basically I needed to give it up. It just wasn't allowed. It was basically contraband.
So they were telling you couldn't even hand DVDs out to people or say, hey, take a look at this. Your free speech is totally quelled. It's like it was pornography or something.
Absolutely not. You cannot watch this movie. But, I'm not sure. I think it definitely has to do with the military influence of the school because, in fact, there were a lot of people who had been in the military or had worked in some part of the government.
Well, obviously, those people are almost the last to want to believe this or even take a look at the information or give it even a moment other than to say, oh, that's not true. I love my country. I'm a true patriot. We need to kill these ragheads. Oh, maybe they say that under their breath. But, I mean, that is really the mentality, unfortunately. So it gets banned from the school. Now, you're not allowed to hand it out. You're not allowed to have it. It's contraband. It's like having, marijuana or pornography or, or a weapon. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's a documentary about free speech and what's really going on in this country, and especially about the most pivotal event in our lifetimes, and it continues to be. It continues to be the same reason that we have the DHS. It continues to be the same reason that we're in Afghanistan and Iraq and possibly going to go into Iran or maybe North Korea because the terrorists are going to get us. It's the reason these domestic lexicons are coming out. So it really is that pivotal event. It is that moment where everything supposedly changed. Now, they've banned it. What happens to this teacher?